So the thing is, we have got to address this issue. If not, why have any traffic laws? Why have speed limits if you're going to say, well, it's too hard to enforce and no one's adhering to them anyways.
Well,
yeah, most of them are driving
we
my
want you to be
neighborhood.
reactive and proactive, but let me just say this. Not everything is within the reach of a law, and one thing no law can do, not even one written by Jose Menendez, you can't make people care who don't give a damn to begin with. And unfortunately, a lot of these people that menace us on the roads, no matter what the laws are, they're so self-absorbed that right up until the moment of impact, they're not thinking about anybody else but themselves. I've seen people get out of an accident, get out of a car at an accident scene, and they're on the cell phone. They didn't even interrupt the phone call.
Oh, man, I got
after
to
they
tell
had a
you
fender
something,
bender.
Jack.
And I give them Jimmy's number when I see that happen. We're back with more Gang of Four on a Friday morning. It's 10:41 on KTSA. .46 on San Antonio's News Talk Station, 550 KTSA, and online at ktsa.com. On our Gang of Four today, Defense Attorney Jimmy Parks is here, State Representative Jose Menendez, and political man about town and bow tie wearer Michael Shackelford. I mean, it's your symbol. It's your, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, it's
Thanks,
your
Jeff.
logo. It's your brand. The bow tie is your brand. It was about a year ago. Very sad story. Everybody, I think, remembers this. Husband and wife are bicycling along Highway 16 near Helotes, and a guy in a pickup takes them out. I mean, it's quick, it's violent, it's over in a second. This driver now facing up to 10 years in prison if the prosecution shows that he was operating his vehicle as a deadly weapon, failing to control it, failing to maintain a proper lookout, all this legal lingo, Jimmy, et cetera, versus people who say, this is an accident. This is what happens when you put bicyclists in proximity to drivers, and not that we're blaming the people on the bike, although some people do, but hey, this isn't homicide, this is an accident. So we're asking people today, based on what you've heard about this story over the last year, does it fit the definition of an accident where we would say probably everyone has suffered, everyone has lost here, or is this criminally negligent homicide?
And Jack, one thing that we don't know is what this accident reconstruction shows. We still don't have that information, so
that'll be brought out in the trial.
And that'll tell us a lot about what happened. They go back and historically reconstruct the events of that day, and that should make a difference, and hopefully that made a difference to this district attorney's office. But my feeling is that we as a society really enjoy blaming somebody. We want to blame somebody for all of our problems. We never want to accept responsibility. And so we have these knee-jerk reactions to incidents like this, and it makes us feel better that somebody has to pay for it. But many times there are just tragic things that happen. I mean, they're very tragic. They may even be horrific. They may be life-changing that really aren't anybody's fault. There's nobody to blame. They're just an accident. And right now, these accidents are waiting to happen because the highways around Texas and the roadways around Texas are not really designed for bicycles and motor traffic at the same time. And so you're going to have this happen once in a while, whether or not it's anybody's fault.
All right, so our poll question today, more like an accident or more like a criminally negligent act? Jose Menendez, what do you think?
I think Jimmy hit on sort of the real what happened. I mean, is there a sort of a black box, if you will? I had heard, but I'm not sure if I read it in the newspaper, that possibly there was a cell phone involved. I had a friend, a former legislator who died in an accident while driving high rate of speed, and it was reaching for the cell phone, lost control of the vehicle. And so, while I agree with Jimmy that we're quick to want to have someone to blame and hold responsible, I'm not ready to just say, you know what, it was an accident that could have been avoided. I think if the person was negligent in the way that in driving, if they had something to do with the phone, if they were doing something they shouldn't have been doing, at some point we've got to just stop saying it was an accident. At some point we've got to say, your actions should have been driving this vehicle. Your actions caused the death of someone and caused a child to be an orphan, and it's kind of like the lawsuit. People don't learn a lesson until it costs them something. Well, this person that caused this needs to be, it unfortunately is going to be the example for themselves and a lot of other people.
Mm-hmm. Michael, where do you come down on this?
You know, I have a very strong opinion about this because I'm a bike rider myself. However, with saying that, I'm not going to ride my bike on 1604 or Highway 16. I think both parties have to have some sort of accountability. I think it's completely an accident, and just the two riders were using their bikes for recreational purposes. That's the bottom line. That's what we use it here for. We're not the East Coast or in California. We use it for recreational, not for transportation purposes. So there has to be a sort of responsibility on the bike riders' side to have proper distance, and we now have that. Back then we didn't. And if we're going to use the road for exercise or recreational purposes, bike riders have to take more responsibility. If I'm not going to use Bowflex on Highway 16, I mean that's what they're using it for, and that's not what our roads are made for. So you're right, Jimmy. Our roads are made for infrastructure. We don't have the infrastructure in place to properly allow a bike rider and a vehicle to be on the road at the same time.
But
it's just unfortunate situation.
But Michael, all of that's changing. I mean, we just read in the paper the new courthouse extension, the new building that they're getting ready to finish, has showers in the basement to encourage workers to ride their bikes to work. So we're starting to see employers saying, we know some of you want to do this, and we're encouraging this. So, you know, we got
It's a mixed message, isn't it?
It's a mixed message.
I feel that way when I see these bike lanes pop up.
Exactly.
The bike lane is like 18 inches wide.
Right.
And I mean, it's in a place that doesn't, in my opinion, they put them on streets where I don't think there's the room.
Right.
And it's not that I'm not going to be very careful, but I feel like you are asking for a tragedy when you paint that bike lane stripe, and that's all you're doing is painting a stripe and declaring it a bike lane. When you're putting that in a place that's heavily trafficked, is it possible that we want a conviction and a finding of homicide because it's hard for us to accept that random accidents happen? You were saying, Jimmy, we always need somebody to blame. The corollary to that is that if there isn't somebody to blame, then every day we walk out the door, stuff can just happen to us.
Well, we worry about that kind of stuff. The reason we want somebody to blame, I think, because I live in this world. The reason we want somebody to blame is because it makes us feel better and it makes us feel safer. If we think it's somebody's fault, if we think there was a way for something to happen other than the way it happened, then we feel like we can protect ourselves. One of the things I do, Jack, and I don't want to, I don't want to try to edify you guys on some boring details, but when I'm in my opening and I'm explaining what happened in an event, I realize this, that whoever I start with as the principal actor, the jury will immediately engage in counter-attitudinal thinking. And they'll begin to think, if I was that person, how could I have kept this murder or this rape or this robbery from happening? So I couch my opening knowing that's going to happen and decide who do I need to start with in this thing, because that's the way humans think, see? And we react to that, and that's what's going to happen in this situation. So we want somebody to blame so that we feel it couldn't have happened to us.
But guys, how do we speak to our children? Do we not, when our children say it was an accident, because our children, young children, their favorite thing to say was an accident. So I come back to them and I say, well, but could it have been avoided? And did you take reasonable actions to prevent the accident? And that's, to me, the bottom line. I mean, the guy's driving. We've had people, they're driving, someone runs out into the middle of the road, or they do something, and there's absolutely nothing they could do. They were driving. The reaction time, whatever the skid marks, whatever the accident recreation shows, could not have been avoided. But the question is, were these people riding lawfully on their bicycles? And did this guy? I heard that he went across 2 lanes.
Right. I mean, I think that is the key, because an accident is, I was taking the precautions and I was still unable to avoid or stop in time. But if you can show in the reconstruction that lines were crossed,